How are you? The Enzo DiCascenzo podcast. And for, I guess, 4 months, we haven't made any videos because I didn't teach in the summer. So now we're making videos. And it's good to sort of be with you guys again. Yeah, it's good to be with everybody again. And it was funny. My voice the other day, I was in class, and I hadn't really orated for since the 5th of May, right, until now, right, almost 4 months later, and I felt it, at home. So I'd done 2 days at St. Peter's, so, and actually this introductory video will count for the 4 undergraduate classes, the 1 graduate course, and then the NJCU, that the intermediate that we're doing over there. It'll count for all of that. Okay, so yeah, everybody can. And again, the St. Peter students are, I think, a little more used to, all the different things that we're dealing with this, and NJCU, you guys will get used to it as we go along. But all the lectures are backed up, regardless if we have live lectures. So the whole course is self-contained, and there's a couple of people with special situations, and that's going to help them also. Okay, so let's get to Blackboard. Okay. So hopefully everybody sees this. And what I'll do is the shells are all set up similarly. So I'm just going to use the management economics one to explain everything. Now with the graduate courses, they only meet. There's only a few live sessions, but as you look through all my courses here, this is good for the 401, the 410, the 101, the 415. Okay, and like I said, for the NJCU, maybe we might do a specific one for you guys, but it all works the same, even for the NJCU shell, it works similarly. So, but just in a very basic sense. Now, again, we're not going to final exam. There's nothing to speak of yet. Assignments, we have no assignments yet, but that's going to change very soon. Let's concentrate on syllabus, textbooks, Excel spreadsheet, and some of the readings. Let's just sort of go over all these links. Now, in terms of the syllabus, I mean, these are all very generic syllabuses. There's 2 things that I teach. I mean, look, at this point, I've done this a very long time. So I know what you need to know, what's important to teach you, and what's just sort of, nice to teach you, or kind of a thing. Macroeconomic analysis, how the aggregate economy is behaving, plus being able to analyze a specific situation, analyze a specific company, and analyze, like a credit rating, what the debt situation is for a company. But basically, getting your hands around balance sheets, income statements, cash flow statements, how to do evaluation, what's going on with interest rates, what the central banks are doing. Those are the things that you need, and how to model out everything in Excel. We use Excel for everything. Okay, it's not a specific course where we're just going to teach you Excel, or at least I don't work that way, and I'll tell you why. In between, I was at Rutgers for 10 years, went to Fordham, got my MBA, worked at Value Line. So after Value Line, but before my private banking career, I worked for an Excel training firm, and we taught 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Everything, statistics, finance, accounting, economic modeling, everything can be done in Excel. And I picked those skills up there and just took it with me to college. And I realized a lot of professors don't do that. A lot of professors maybe at Rutgers don't do that, or whatever it might be. But it's a useful tool. Excel has been around a very long time. I was talking to somebody at one of the schools recently, and let's see, Excel, when did it get? I looked this up at Rutgers a number of years ago. When was it invented? It was like the 70s, like 79. And then maybe that was Lotus, right? And then maybe something 82 or something like that. Yeah, here we go. There it is. Yeah, so remember VisiCalc? I'm really dating myself. I think me and the chairman over at NJCU, we both remember that. Yeah, the first version of Microsoft Excel was 85. Okay, Lotus was 83. But I remember VisiCalc. I do recall it. Then we had Excel 2.0 in 87, 3.0 in 90, then a version for Windows, then 97. So it's been around a while. I said they say, oh, it's too hard, and we should have a separate course, and all these different. I hate to use the word excuses, but all these they're excuses. Okay, it's and then now we're up to 2010, which is what we're using right now. You should know, you should be able to work this stuff through you should be able to work this stuff, everything that we do in Excel. And I understand you got to dust off the computer, you got to sit in front of it, and it's not easy. And wow, okay, so that's just a part of it. I'm looking if there's anything else here. A brief history, who invented it. This is some graphics. I was looking for a nice article. Let me do this. History. Previous versions. There we go. So this, I've never looked at the online Encyclopedia Britannica. Okay, there's something like this. Yeah, and this just says it in words. When there was a version for Apple, the MS-DOS version, the different, when Lotus, the Lotus spreadsheet was first started, and those kinds of things. Lotus Development Company, 1982. Spreadsheets for personal computers. And if you just look at a spreadsheet, what does this look? And actually, we might touch a little bit of this during the first lecture tonight. This is made for accounting, right? It's made for account columns, labels. It does computations. Okay, so and actually, this is the Tesla consolidated statement of operations, and we're going to spend some time going over that because you need that. You need to understand income statements, and you need to understand that to execute business deals, and to do valuations, and to compute cash flows, and you need to be able to gather that all together. Very important. Very important. So yeah, anyway, so the syllabus is here, and it has the room location. So you go to your shell, whatever section you're taking, and you click and make sure that you're in the right course. We had a couple of people at St. Peter's that were walking out. They were in the wrong course, so make sure you're in the right place. Now, in terms of textbooks, I'm not requiring anyone to buy any textbooks. Okay, but we have an economics textbook here, we have an accounting textbook here, we have a finance textbook, and now we're starting off with something from accounting, right? The chapter 1, right? And actually the first couple chapters are income statements, but and also income statements are utilized through all 30 pages of that textbook. So, and again, I didn't start teaching yesterday. Okay, so I have a pretty good perspective at this point as to how to explain all this stuff. Okay, with the finance textbook, time value of money is the most important piece of that here, and with economics, pretty much everything in the economics textbook is important. And I'm not just saying that because I'm an economist. I'm saying it because it's true. Actually, this is the here's the brief contents here, if you guys can see it. Again, we're sort of now for the intermediate macro course, we're going to be here, right? Aggregate expenditure, government fiscal policy. We might be skipping over money supply, money demand, but aggregate demand, aggregate supply, and even in the other courses, we might touch a little bit of this. Now, in the international finance course, someone brought up a point about the textbook and this and that, and for my own edification, I looked up the Krugman's international finance textbook. It's basically macro theory with a couple chapters on exchange rates. Okay, and maybe a chapter on imports and exports. Okay, but it's all the models that we teach in the basic economics courses, and keep it. We always want to keep it fundamental. Okay, we always want to keep it fundamental as best we can. But again, especially if you're working in banking, if you're working for financial services, everything that you see here is extraordinarily important. These world economy chapters here, which is the balance of payments, exchange rates, this is basically the international finance part of it. The comparative advantage example and some of the models that you see in here are just repeats of what we had in the macro chapter. They're just repeats of what's up here. Okay, so the domestic data is easier to get, and I used this example in class the other day. I said, if you were in China, what would be your international finance course studying America, right? So that's if you look at it that way. Okay, so like I said, we want to keep focused and have quality lectures and quality instruction. And that's what we want. Okay. And that's what we're doing. So, okay, this is actually this introductory. This is demand supply. This is the introductory micro course. This part here, this is the intermediate microeconomics. This is the intermediate macroeconomics, and this is the international economics or finance part. And these are just some extras. So see, these are some actually, and this is the intro macroeconomics. This is the intro microeconomics. This part and this part 6 and part 3 are, we can add these on to you could add these onto the micro course. You could add these onto the intermediate macro course. That stabilization, long run growth. Okay, based on how long it takes to cover the material. Okay, but like I said, but all the textbooks are here, so you don't have to buy any textbooks or anything like that. And also, I give you a template here. It's instead of clicking on it, it's just this. Okay, and actually, if you notice here, see how this says Excel Fall 2023 video? This file says Excel Fall 2023 master. So what this means is the master file. I'll keep updating this all semester. You should download this to your hard drives. Now your hard drive on your laptop is something like this. See, I have all my syllabuses in here, and everything that I'm talking about in here is in. So this is my beginning semester file. This is my beginning semester file here with the syllabuses and some notes. We're going to talk about the notes in a little bit, and I have everybody's email in this Word file here. Oh, look at this! This I don't know if you guys how New Jersey what your New Jersey what your New Jersey, what do you call it? Your New Jersey trivia is, but see what it says, greetings from St. Peter's, the Jesuit University of New Jersey. There's a Bruce Springsteen song. Bruce Springsteen is a performer or singer or guitar player from central southern New Jersey. And he's actually playing at the Giant Stadium tonight. So it's a big event out on Route 3 and up in northern New Jersey. And one of his, I think it could have been his first album, was called Greetings from Asbury Park, which in the 60s and the 70s was a very artistic musical place. It's not as much so now, even though there's been tremendous effort for a good 20 years or so to revitalize it. It's hard to bring back the past. Newark, Asbury Park, you could fill in the blank into whatever past you're trying to have a rebirth of. It's very tough when a place dramatically changes to sort of change it again, or to bring it back to where it was in the 60s or the 30s or whatever it might be. The Asbury Park was like the Hamptons 100 years ago. Okay, it's no longer like that, but it was like that at one. No offense to anybody who's from there. We at one time, my family had a house there at one time, and in Long Branch, beautiful places. And I forget why we sold them or what happened, but yeah, that's what this. So this is just a bumper sticker for the school, and not a commercial for the NJCU cred. That's not a commercial. So anyhow, so we have the Excel here, and then we have the readings. Okay, and there's just PDFs, and you can just click on these. And we're gonna go over a reading today, and this is actually the Word version of this. And if you just sort of scroll through it, see what it says: legendary investor, Warren Buffett again, capital gains. We have definitions in here, and then we have some current topics, some current interest articles from the Wall Street Journal or different sources. The Motley Fool, it's an odd sounding website, but actually it's a very good investor research website where if you want to have some knowledge about specific companies and specific stocks, you could search how Apple is doing and Microsoft is doing and Johnson & Johnson and Procter & Gamble and probably the energy, Chevron and what have you. Okay, so you can go in there, and I think you need a subscription to get in there, like similar to the Wall Street Journal, but and it's not cheap. It's probably a couple $100 a year. And then Seeking Alpha is also out there. Is another good one. But here, definitions of capital gains, dividends income, what's share capital, what's a preferred stock, different versions of financing. These are all. This is in the economics textbook. This stuff is in the finance textbook. But I'm just creatively picking stuff that I feel is very important. This is in the accounting textbook: operating income and earnings before interest and taxes and depreciation and amortization. What a SEC Form 13F is. What an integrated oil and gas company is. This is in the economics textbook. Real assets are in all three textbooks. how the financial sector behaves, and we'll keep adding to this. But this is very creatively done, and it's done to maximize our time together. That's what this is done for. Now, in terms of assignments, we'll post. I know, so you can click on these, download these again to your hard drive, and there'll be readings out of these. And you should start reading these. Okay, you should definitely start reading these as we go along here. The assignments will be in the assignments folder, and you have to create a PDF for those assignments. And if you give me a second here, I'll get the PDF software. If you guys, whoops, sorry about that. The book covers are slippery. So there we go. If you want to spend $100, I would have this is Adobe. This is Acrobat Writer. Okay, and you can look online for that. I would. So again, you don't have to buy a textbook, but I'd really like, and I'll show you through the videos how to work out assignments in Word, how to work out assignments in Excel, and how to consolidate them into one document. And I'll tell you a quick story. A student of mine from about 6 years ago, a very industrious woman who now has a job in Brooklyn, New York, as administrative assistant, making 6 figures. Before she could even sit to interview for that job, I think it was a charter school in Brooklyn, she had 3 things to do. She had to write a letter, she had to create a PDF out of that letter, so she had to use Word and then create the PDF, and she had to use Excel to create a schedule. So she had to do 3 different things, using those 3. So we're teaching you those 3 pieces of software, in the course. And I'm not trying to be terrible up here by saying this, but there's a reason why I teach these classes, is that I've got the experience and the wisdom and the tread on the tire to advise you what you need to study to go out into the world and be useful. Okay, that's what I'm doing up here. I'm not up here just to follow the table of contents of some textbook somewhere or anything like that. So just keep that in mind. So it's easy when you're 20 or something, say, oh well, I wish it was this, I wish it was that. And I remember there were a number of people a couple of years ago with a rather big mouth about the courses and unhappy and the content and this and that. And, why aren't we going over more, why aren't we talking about, whoever, John Maynard Keynes more, or whatever it might be. A lot of these guys, Adam Smith or whatever it might be, I'm teaching you now. Now is Warren Buffett. Now is Jeremy Grantham. Now is Jay Powell. I'm teaching you the now of all this, not what people were thinking in the 1850s when the world was dramatically different. Okay, so there's a reason for that. And also the people, I remember very specifically the people who moaned and groaned about the content and whatever unhappiness they had about the courses, when it came time to make models, when it came time to deliver, they couldn't deliver at all. So sometimes the more complaining you do is a big deflection for not being able to do something and looking for an out. I'm just being honest. Okay, so try to avoid that. Now my graduate students, not so much, obviously, because when you're working, and when I was at Rutgers, the class was a little more 50-50, where it was 50% day students, maybe 50% people who were working, like, because I taught in the University College, which was the night school at Rutgers. I taught after 5:30 or 4 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever it was. And those guys knew what we were doing and why we were doing what we were doing. They sort of understood that. And it's tougher. And look, I had a student a couple of years ago. She worked for 4 years at a bank, a systemically important bank in Jersey City, but it was a New York-based bank, and there was an asset management part of that business, and somehow she was able to navigate. I don't want to say a part-time job, but where she was able to take her classes, but also spend time in the office and learning about investment management and how businesses are managed. And I remember we had some drama with her that where she was going to work, and was she going to work in tax accounting? What was she going to do, and all these other kinds of things. So she always spoke very highly of the course, because she was, in reality, she worked for a major financial services firm and knew what the requirements were. And she always said to me, "Yeah, you're dead on in everything that you're talking about." Now it's tough to have that attitude or opinion when you don't have that experience, or you may not even be venturing in that direction. You might be just taking this course and doing something else It's not all economics majors. It's not all accounting or finance. It's maybe some of the 101 might just be general students. So it's a lot tougher to figure out, what are we doing here when, kind of a thing when you're sitting there and you have to learn Excel and you have to read these assignments and the way the course is presented is at a more advanced pace and a more advanced level. It's at a level to be useful to you. And that's the Jesuit idea at one time was to make our time together, the most useful that we can make it. And I'm true to that as much as I can be. So, okay, let's look at the first thing that we're going to talk about today. I met Jeremy Grantham I said this story in class. I met Jeremy Grantham out in Ohio. Yeah. So this was in Fortune magazine again, just a couple of days ago, and he was giving a seminar, and I was giving a seminar, and he was very gracious to me. He's from Hertfordshire, England, and managed, and it's not his assets under management weren't necessarily in here, but I read them someplace about in 2015 he was managing over 100 billion US dollars, and recently, like in 2020 or 2023, it was about half of that. And I'm sitting there, I'm scratching my head saying, well, this. I don't know if you know who this is. This is and you can see here's the firm, Grantham, Mayo, Van Otterloo. It's an investment firm, and he's one of the founders of it. It says investors should ignore his more optimistic peers and the central bank. So what that means is that you're hearing, you may be hearing things about, oh, well, we're not really going to have a recession, and he's believing that a recession will hit, sometime this year. And actually, here we can start sort of at the top of this. It says, despite nearly 2 years of recession predictions by Wall Street's top minds, billionaire investors, and former Federal Reserve officials, the U.S. has yet to suffer an economic downturn. An economic downturn means less people working, less consumption, less spending. That's an economic, and less profits, lower valuations in the stock market. That's what an economic downturn is. And it says with a strong labor market and strong inflation fading in the face of aggressive interest rate hikes, some experts have turned bullish, arguing the Fed Chairman Jay Powell can engineer a soft landing for the economy. Even the Fed staff economists have reeled in July. They're no longer forecasting a mild recession that they had first predicted. Now, without naming names, we had a guy on staff. I don't know if he's still with us, but we had a Federal Reserve economist on staff who, and this is not a knock, and I'm not being terrible, but I'm just saying the truth. I mean, look, I'm out in the world, traveling, meeting people, and the best way to get a sense of what's going on is to just talk to bankers, wealthy people, finance ministers, central bankers, people who it's their job to know what's going on. Okay, those are the people that can give you the most insight. And this, my colleague who I'm thinking of, spent 50 years, sitting in his office again and just looking at, not I say just, but looking at data and making graphs. And it's much tougher, and not just that one person, but just that whole culture. It's basically a university research department where they don't teach. Basically, they don't teach students; they teach one another, I suppose. But it's a much tougher thing to just from the mathematics predict everything. If you teach calculus, if you teach chemistry, physics, you're following a path, an established path of instruction. Economics, now accounting, the same thing. There's specific rules, generally accepted accounting principles, and the Financial Accounting Standards Board. There's a set of rules for accountants to follow to compute taxes and to do all the tasks that accountants do. But in economics and finance, it's a lot more. It should be more empirical, and it should certainly be more the people trying to figure out what's going on from what's really happening instead of just theorizing like the Federal Reserve tends to do. And there's a lot of criticism hurled at it because they control the money supply, they control interest rates, and those two levers, and certainly buying and selling of securities is the main way that the central bank controls interest rates and money supply, and controls how much economic activity they are by how many balls are in the game. In football, there's one ball. Basketball, there's one ball. In baseball, there's one ball. But there's an Italian game. It's called bocce. And here, let's see if we can find it. It's a simple game. It's a simple game. Italian. If I can spell it right. There was a manager. Oh, Bocce. There it is, Bocce. There we go. There's a picture of it. Let's do images. There we go. I'm trying to find here it is, something like this. There's kids playing it. Here, this is the one, right? All the Italians sitting out there and measuring. What you do is there's a red team and a green team, and the target ball is this little white ball in the middle here. And the whole idea is for the two teams to roll their balls and have the last person rolling have your color ball closest to that white ball. And the great thing about the game is you're allowed to use other. So you have 4 shots at this. You're allowed to use your teammates to knock the other team's. If the other team has their colored ball closer to the white ball, you can knock their ball out of the way with one of your throws. So, and what you hope is that you're the last guy there rolling this ball. And the idea of this game is, if you're the last person rolling, if you knock the other team's ball out of the way, you don't know, you're randomizing these balls pinging around this court. You don't know where the white ball is going to be. It could be closer to the other team's color. But if your team has a closer ball, you'll just roll your ball sort of out of the way and let your victory stand without upsetting the order of your victory versus the other team's defeat. So what am I trying to say here? In terms of the central bank and the money they allow on the field, if you've got too many balls pinging around, okay, it's gonna be very hard to control. Believe it's much easier to control less bocce balls than more bocce balls. And same thing with the Federal Reserve. It's a little easier to control fewer transactions than a lot of transactions. Okay, so again, I grew up in the park in Essex County, and all the old timers, my father included, played that game, and as old as retired laborers, that's for sure. The Fed's record is wonderful because they're almost guaranteed to be wrong. They've never called a recession, particularly not the ones following great bubbles. Now, I suspect, and I told this story in class, myself included, none of us are really used to the money culture, right? None of us are really used to that. Okay, we're used to our parents worked, or they were PSC&G workers or firemen. My father was a car mechanic, and they went to work and came home, and we ate and had macaroni, turned on the air conditioning, watched the Yankee game, went down the shore on weekends. We had a very good northern New Jersey life. Okay, we didn't worry so much about is what we're thinking or what we're saying offending anybody. But I think with Jeremy Grantham, I think the problem with him and the reason why they're not managing as much money any longer is that when you come out publicly in Bloomberg and sit there and say, oh yeah, by the way, the Federal Reserve, they don't know what they're doing, you're going to offend people. And I think that's probably what happened. And people may have called their buddies from Yale Law School or whatever it might be. I'm not picking on Yale Law School, but whatever it might be, from some connection somewhere, and says, hey, by the way, this guy's knocking us, take your money away, get your money out of there from being managed by him or whatever it might be. Or if you do have him manage your money, you're not going to deal with us, or there's going to be some consequence for dealing with him or whatever, when he comes out publicly and says very strong things like this. Okay, for a politician to criticize the Federal Reserve, folks, is one thing. For a private citizen to do it, especially today, is far something else. Now, bubbles, great bubbles. We didn't spend an enormous amount of time going over what bubbles were. Bubbles are basically an inflationary event where the price of something is larger than it should be. Real estate, stocks, commodities, those kinds of things. I'm trying to think I worked on a bunch of notes last summer. If I have that, I have to look that up to see if I have any bubble discussions in there. But I may have, and I'm hesitant to go digging for this. But let me see if I can quickly maybe find it. Oops. Where would it be? Here. This thing, courses. Right there. It's not that one. There it is, Citibank. is there. And so this is some top secret stuff. So hang on a second here as I'm skating through this. It's a big, long one. Yeah, this thing. This we don't need. See, in class, I wouldn't have been able to do this. So this is, or here. Bubbles. There we go. Bubbles. Yeah, I didn't. We didn't go over that. This is this one. This is this one. Yeah, not a lot of them. I'm surprised we don't have. Yeah, but I knew we had some in here. So okay, this is Guide to Recession. Okay. So yeah, so we're not necessarily going to talk about this today, but just looking at this, I think had asset bubbles cause recessions, I think that's something we want to maybe have a look at. 826. So yeah, so we might go back in time a bit. It says understand how asset bubbles often lead to deep protracted recessions. Read about historical examples of recessions preceded by asset bubbles, and all of Jeremy Grantham's work is based on that. But I remember looking that up and saying that we had something like that. So anyway, but we'll get back to that. So also, and again, based on maybe the graduate students might remember the dot-com bust, but generally a lot of you were born around 201 or 202 or 203. A lot of the students in my class now. So the dot-com crash is something that predates your existence, but that was when the technology stocks that came out of the 1990s were overvalued and dramatically reduced in value based on a loss of confidence in what the earnings of those companies were going to be. And very similarly with real estate and the financial crisis, the confidence or the confidence in the valuations of a lot of the real estate and the confidence in the people who were obligated to pay the mortgages off, that they weren't going to be able to do it because the rates were too high, or that there was a complexity in the agreement or something to that effect. Okay, so those and he predicted the both of these, and you would think a guy like, it's like I use this example in class. If you want to get your car fixed, okay, and you bring it somewhere and there's a noise in the car, you're driving the car and it's something's clicking or the transmission is slipping or whatever it might be, and you bring to somebody and they tell you that they charge you $500 and they told you they fixed it, and you drive it away and it's got the same problem from before, you won't be happy going back to that guy, as opposed to the guy that I go to who listens to the car, says it's this, it's that, it's the other thing, no computer, no anything, and he's right almost all the time. Okay, so yeah, so you want the horse whisperer mechanic versus the guy who took the money and didn't fix it. Okay, it's the same thing with investing. You want the guy who delivers results. So how could this guy not have results? It has to be some kind of retaliatory thing against him, and it's a shame that the world is that way. But I suspect it could be something like that. So, anyway, so he's known for making off-base or premature market bubble forecasts in recent years. This week, he argued that the Fed's interest rate hikes are still working their way through the economy. Yeah, that's And here, we're going to look at the results of increased interest rates. And this is all, folks, this is all textbook stuff. It's textbook stuff that exists in the general press. Instead of, flipping through your textbook to read this, we're giving you a current example of the cost of borrowing, real estate prices, growth-focused stocks, the impact of the interest rates on the general economy. We're giving you examples of that. Okay, is how the course runs. It says, okay, well, fine. The Federal Reserve has increased interest rates dramatically, and rather quickly in the last 18 months or so. There's an increased cost of borrowing because when the Federal Reserve increases interest rates, the commercial banks, to get loans from one another or the central bank, have to pay a higher interest rate. So all the commercial banks are going to do is pass on that cost to the consumer, which is you, the person getting a mortgage, or the person getting a car loan, or getting some kind of credit from these banks. It says increase the cost of borrowing for households and businesses, depressing real estate prices. Well, the reason real estate prices are, and again, this is supply and demand. Okay, the reason real estate prices are depressed is if there's less demand for homes and there's a bigger supplier, or there's just more available houses, you're not going to have a lot of people bidding on your property, if any at all. So you can't have a sky high price. You have to lower the price to attract people to get them to to get them to buy your property. Now, similarly with plumbers and with the tradespeople that are out there in the world, there was a plumber on Fox News today saying that we have to make upfront payments to our plumbers just to get them to come in to take the jobs that we have in our backlog, kind of a situation. Try to get your HVAC fixed and without paying, top, premium dollar. Even today, especially in this part of the country, which is a huge magnet for Irish immigration, German immigration, Italian immigration, Latin American immigration now. Okay, we're a huge magnet for that stuff. So a depressed real estate price means there's a lot of houses and not a lot of bidders for the houses. Weighing on growth-focused stocks means weighing on the valuation, and the valuation is weighed on by the earnings, which means you don't have as high of a valuation, you don't have as high of a stock price, and the reason you don't have high valuations and high stock prices are the earnings aren't either growing as much or maybe even in decline. Okay, because the businesses aren't expanding, they're not expanding their revenue, they're not expanding their profits. Okay, so those are all the effects of Federal Reserve interest rate hikes. Okay, and actually, what we should probably do is something like that. And actually, as I'm going through this, I'm sort of cleaning it up a bit. And there we go. Trying to make it look better as we're sort of going through everything here, which is never bad. We're not going to be able to hit two. We're the Jeremy Grantham one, and we'll talk about it as long as we need to today, and then we'll move on to the Tesla version, and we'll at least spend a little bit of time looking up some of the data, and you'll see what I'm talking about when we get to it. And then ultimately it means we'll have a recession running perhaps deep into next year, and accompanying a decline in stock prices. Recessions are caused by reduced earnings of companies, reduced economic activity, reduced people buying, running to Walmart, running to Target, running to the dollar stores, and so on and so forth. Just less commercial activity happening, less people buying houses, less people working. That's a recession. And then there's the accompanying decline in stock prices means if the companies have lower profits and lower earnings, they're going to have lower valuations, hence lower stock prices, and a decline in stock, and a decline in your 401k, a loss of confidence. The University of Michigan survey, which we concentrated on heavily a couple of years ago, they have an index that follows sentiment, confidence, projection into the future, all that sort of feely stuff, how people feel, and they quantify it into an index. Economists love to do things like that. Okay, so that's what's going on with that. But we spent a lot of time on the Michigan survey, and actually here, just very quickly, we just look at it, get rid of the bocce balls and the Excel history. See, this is the nice thing about being able to do these from home. University of Michigan survey. Was right there. That's the Michigan website. Let's do. There's a sentiment, consumer sentiment. Okay, financial health. Consumer sentiment index is one of these. Consumer confidence, Investopedia. Sentiment dips. Yeah, it's confidence, sentiment. There it is, confidence, sentiment, an overview. And then there's the what you're projecting, how much money you're going to be making in 3 years, and how much your house is going to be worth in 3 years, and things of that nature. So, and there's a couple sectors, expected economic indices, and things of that nature. But yeah, this is a nice. Actually, this is something we might might do something with this, including the bubbles thing. And let's quickly look here. Bubble. Whoops, spelled it terribly. It had asset bubbles cause recessions. That one. we'll get to those. We'll work on those over the weekend or whatever it might be. Ooh. Okay, well, we'll get to that. We'll definitely get to that. But there's a lot of good stuff here. How interest rates impact the economy, cost of borrowing, real estate prices, and all that. So, and again, that's incorporated in the article, but you would read that in a textbook, okay, in an international finance textbook, and you would. This is true in Europe. This is true in any free and open market where there's a central bank controlling the money supply and controlling interest rates. Europeans have it. We have it. Okay. And certainly even the African countries and some of these other places. Now, the Middle East and China, it's a little more of a government control. And not that this isn't government controlled either, but the market dictates here where the interests of purely the wealthy people, purely the government officials and the parties that are in political power, they're doing things for them, for their interest, not necessarily the people's interest. Okay. That's the difference. We'll have a recession running perhaps deep into next year and accompanying a decline. Okay, we talked about that already. A longtime Fed critic, Grantham, believes the central bank officials prided themselves in stimulating the bubbles with near zero interest rates and then aggressive purchases of mortgage-backed securities and government bonds since the global financial crisis. And then through COVID, now he argues the economy is paying the price for their unsustainable. So in other words, and my cousin, who's not an economist, he's a retired detective from Essex County, says, well, the Federal Reserve's printing money. They're printing it. He goes, how is this good? And what he's worried about, and a retired fireman, a retired PSC&G worker, anybody who's on a fixed income, what they're going to care about is that they're making a fixed amount of money with really no hope of ever expanding their earnings very much because they're older. And if you're a fireman, it's a physical job. And, there's no 65-year-old fireman. Okay. You got to do that at 25 to 55 or whatever. And hope that the pension that you agree to is going to take care of you like you thought it would. And I think someone told Roosevelt 100 years ago, whenever Theodore Roosevelt was president, or Franklin Roosevelt was president rather, that the Social Security system, that this is not, that we're not going to be able to cover all of our obligations with this. Well, he goes, that's not our problem, or something. My cousin was telling me a quote like that. So, but you can't just keep printing money and think that's going to solve anything, because all money is a representation of the assets and the earning power that's in the economy. If you're not expanding real assets, if you're not expanding agricultural and hotels and hospitals and banks and manufacturing companies and pharmaceuticals, and if you're not expanding the backbone of your economy, okay, printing all the money that you can print isn't going to resolve. All you're doing is making things more expensive, and I think a lot of countries have learned that. Countries with sort of totalitarian or authoritarian regimes have learned that just printing money doesn't resolve much of anything. They took credit for the beneficial effects of higher asset prices on the economy. And again, when you're creating inflation, you're also inflating. It's not just eggs and milk. The price of eggs and milk are commodities that are inflated. That the prices of shares of Apple and Microsoft and all these different companies, they're also inflated. And on paper, say, hey, the value of my investments, the value of my 401k, it's higher than it was before. But then there's a deflationary effect on asset prices breaking, which and they always do, and we always work in cycles. Everything works in a economic expansion, economic contraction, economic expansion, economic contraction sort of pattern. Those things happen all the time. Okay, and they're going to break at some point, and then the Federal Reserve is, in his words, seems to disappear and not take the credit. Say, hell, well, we did this, we did that. And look at the results of that. We caused this trough by over stimulating the economy or printing too much money. The years of unsustainable growth in asset prices due to Fed policy and lack of investment in the production of key raw materials globally will ultimately lead to a new era for the economy globally. And again, I had a student who was sort of on my back saying, "Oh, international." Well, we live the elite want a global marketplace. The elite want global governance. That's what the elite want. Okay, so when the conception of an international finance course came about probably decades ago, it wasn't maybe with the reality that we live in today, where the economic models that work in the West, the economic models that work in the United States, the economic models that work in Europe do apply or can be used in many places. Okay. Inflation, and also this is Grantham's opinion. He suspects inflation will never be as low as the average for the last 10 years. You guys who are probably 20 or 18, most of your life, inflation wasn't an issue. When I was a kid, inflation in the early 80s was a big issue. It was great for my mom, who was an investor, and she made lots of money, by investing at 18 or 19%, right? Really was doing great with that. But now we've re-entered a period of moderately higher inflation, higher interest rates, and here's the conclusion of this, and we'll finish this, but the conclusion of this is lower interest rates push up asset prices, higher interest rates push down asset prices. Okay. And higher rates, and the reason they push down asset prices is because higher rates reduce lending, reduce borrowing, reduce expansion, reduce earnings, and hence reduce valuations, which reduce stock prices or asset prices. That's what. Now lower rates, on the other increase economic activity, increase borrowing, increase corporate expansion, increase earnings. And obviously, when you have increased earnings and increased profits, you have increased valuations and increased stock prices. Okay. And again, that's true in Europe. That's true in America. That's true in India. That's now, if you don't have a free government, the rules, the rules of open economies may not apply to you. Okay. So, and again, I have a series of books. I don't want to grab, because I don't want to topple my pile of books here. But if you've got a government controlled economy, as opposed to a government. See, we have a government shepherded economy where other countries like China have a government controlled. Russia has a government controlled, where you can't just go in there and invest. Okay, so American companies certainly can't do that. It says Grantham isn't the only well-respected name on Wall Street with a bearish outlook for the U.S. economy. Rosenberg, a veteran economist and founder of Rosenberg Research, told Bloomberg we have the furthest thing in the world from a robust economy. Okay, and also, by the way, I meant to say this earlier. For the 101 course, usually we'll spend some time on employed persons, how to compute inflation, what the economic activity numbers are, how to measure economic output of the country, and things of that nature. So there's a lot of work that you could do on digging up, from the Bureau of Labor Statistics website, how to dig up the employment numbers and unemployment rate and how to compute those yourselves, and participation rates and several variations of computing inflation and things of that nature. Okay, there's a lot of ways you can sort of do that. It says the recession has been delayed, not derailed. And historically, it's taken on average of around 2 years for a recession to begin after the Fed's first interest rate hike. And the central bank started the current hiking cycle roughly 16 months ago. And Rosenberg has recently warned about numerous headwinds to the U.S. economy, fears China's current economic issues, including now, again, international, for the people who care about international topics, China has a current property crisis, sky-high youth unemployment, and potentially persistent deflation, which will slow global economic growth. So if you've a property crisis, means people aren't buying. Okay, so there's a lack of demand, there's a lack of flexible money out there to buy property. Deflation means prices are in decline, not expanding. Prices are depreciating. Okay, and if prices are depreciating, you got a property crisis, and there's not money to buy property, and activity is at a low. You're not hiring people. You're not hiring young people, certainly. So you can see, again, several times in this article, we've gone back to basic macroeconomics and basically what happens with inflation and deflation. Okay, in all in one article, all current, which I want to, I don't feel like I have to sell that, okay, because that's just it's far better to talk about an example today, okay, than an example from 1972 or something like that. And it says this will slow global economic growth. He's also worried the U.S. student debt relief program, which I really haven't followed too much, will weigh on U.S. consumer spending, and that fiscal policy will be constrained by Fitch's recent downgrade of government debt. Now, if you have a lower credit rating, you can't borrow as much. If you can't borrow as much, you can't spend as much. That's fiscal policy is government spending. Weighing on the U.S. consumer. So if you're spending more of your earnings on paying off debt, on interest expenses and paying back principal, okay, you don't have it to buy a Tesla, you don't have it to spend at Walmart. Okay, so that's really what that means. And he argued banks have been raising their loan loss provisions, the funds they set aside for loan defaults, because they know what's coming. Well, I mean, and again, that's if you're an experienced guy, you can look at the banking sector and see what the publicly available information for these banks has to tell you, and you can sort of read the tea leaves, and that's what Rosenberg is doing here. We're not getting out of this without a recession. It reminds me of the summer of 07. People were saying, where's the recession? Where's the recession? And then they got their answer a few months later when the global financial crisis hit in December of 2007 and spilled over into 08, into that, very historic, right? That historic September 2008. Rosenberg predicted a recession would hit the economy in 2022, arguing in May of that year that rising interest rates would lead to a fall in home prices and a wealth shock that would slash consumer spending. Yeah, a wealth shock. I don't really. I mean, obviously a shock is a war, a depression, the global financial crisis. That those are shocks to the economy. Some discontinuous impact that affects prices, that affects consumer behavior. A wealth shock, I got to look that up. Wealth shock. Okay, no, we do this. We have this. I outline this. Yeah. Random unpredictable events that have a widespread impact on the economy and are caused by things outside the scope of economic outside of economic models. Again, I was discussing with another professor this week that this isn't physics where force equals mass times acceleration every single time. Caused by things outside the scope of economic models. I'm trying to give you guys the multi-vectored perspective on economies and what a company is doing, what the aggregate is doing. That's what we have to look at. Shocks can be classified by the economic sector they originate from, and where they primarily influence either supply or demand, because markets are connected. The effects of shocks can move through the economy to many markets and have a major macroeconomic impact for better or worse. Supply shocks, demand shocks. A demand shock obviously is a shift in the patterns of private spending. A supply shock, like having all those ships off the coast of Los Angeles with all the Amazon boxes and all the goods on the ships and not being able to get them to market. Financial, yeah, policy, yeah, we've had all these, yeah. So I have this somewhere, and actually, where is it? This is your first set of notes. It's not this one. It's a second set of notes. I mean, or is it this one? No, I don't think it's this one. Let me see. Yeah, oh, there. Could have hit me. Economic shock. There it is. It's a second set of notes. Sorry about that, folks. There it is. Fundamental economic variables, substantial effect on macroeconomic outcomes and measures. So yeah, so we have this in there. Okay. So it's in the first. So that's why it's in your interests to read all of that stuff. Okay, it's in your interest to read all of that stuff. All the different, even though it's probably a couple hundred pages of reading, but you should schedule that, during the semester to sort of read through it. So with slash consumer spending, Rosenberg, like many of his peers, will be forced to push back the timing of the recession to cool over the last year, but he remains convinced that eventually the economy will crack under the weight of rising interest rates. Okay. And then Grantham has been warning of an epic stock market bubble since January 2021 and pending U.S. recession since early next year, but he too has been forced to push back his fort. Now the recession is coming this year, he argues. Okay. So yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about with that. We're here again. Whoops, let me do another one of these. Data. There it is. Waiting for the Last Dance. We should take these three, copy them, and put them here with us. See, you gotta be able to move around your files here. You got to be able to do all this. There they go. Yeah, here it says waiting for the. So I may put these up there. Hazards of asset allocation at a late stage major bubble. This is a couple years ago. This is all of 21. So yeah, almost 3 years ago, he was warning this. And what did he say here? He said, the long bull market in 09 has finally matured into a fully fledged epic bubble. Extreme overvaluation, explosive price increases, frenzied issuance, and hysterical speculative investor behavior. This event will be recorded as one of the great bubbles of financial history, along with the South Sea bubble of 1920, South Sea bubble, 1929 and 2000. Okay. You can never, the one reality that you can never change is the higher price assets will produce a lower return than a lower priced asset. Okay. And the scary thing here is he backs this up with data. Okay, that's the scary thing about this. So I don't know what's being measured here because I have to go back and read the article, but obviously you could see, well, housing, housing's too expensive, declines, technology stocks too expensive, decline. Okay, so he's showing that and then having it. There he is. There's a picture of him. And this was founded in 77. This firm. Okay, so but yeah, he says a lot of things that people probably don't like. Okay, so that's a part of what a part of what's going on with maybe his being on the bad list kind of a thing. Okay, so we discussed this article. That was one thing I wanted to talk about. The other thing, and I just want to do a part of it with you guys today. I want to spend a little, and we'll just do one of these columns. I just wanted to go over the statement of operations is really what I wanted to do with you guys. Yeah, Tesla discussion. Yeah. So let's just do 1 year. So in other words, what do you have here? You have revenues, you have cost of revenues, you have a gross profit, you have an operating expense, you have research and development, you have total operating expenses, you have profit and loss, earnings before interest and taxes, interest income. So what I've done is, now look, this is not an accounting class, and we're not going to go over every single entry here, but we are going to have a little bit of a discussion of earnings before interest and taxes and earnings before interest and taxes and depreciation and amortization. These numbers here, I think I said this in class. Warren Buffett, if you invested $1 with Warren Buffett in the early 60s, like maybe 1962 or something like that, and you looked at what that dollar's worth today, that dollar's worth $43,000 today. If you invested $1 with him, so in other words, you have 43,000 times your money. 43,000 times your money is 4.3 million% appreciation, total appreciation. Now you can annualize that. This is done 58 years ago. Where is it? There we go. This is some secret stuff, so be careful what I'm letting you see here. This is one of my projects that we're working on. There it is. Okay. I'm just going to pull this like this and just drop it for you guys here. This is video right there. Okay. You probably skate. You're probably looking at this saying, "Oh my God, what is that?" Right? And again, the math. Again, I went to NJIT engineering. The formula here, line 70, future value equals present value times 1 plus R to the T power. And this will be good for the 101, the 410 section. So you can see I'm doing all the sections at once because I've just done this forever. I know all the things that you need here. You want to solve for rate. So it's F equals, future value equals present value times 1 plus R to the T power. But the R is in that parenthesis. So how do you get it out of there? Again, you take the natural log of both sides. Okay. And I realize that using natural logs was a mathematical technique to compute exponents before we had calculators and computers, but it still works for what we're trying to do here. Okay. So I'm not going to go into natural logs and base E and base 10, but just walk with me through this. natural log base E, and actually looking at this, we said log. This should be N. Yeah. It could be log base C or natural log is all that. So you take the natural log of both. Actually, you divide by P, divide by present value. So it's future value divided by present value. Take the natural log of both sides, which is right there. I'm pointing to it. Like you can't see me point to it. But so then you have the T can move in front of the natural log. Then you can divide both sides by natural log 1 plus R. Okay. And then so T equals or R equals actually, why don't I have the rest of that? I don't know why I don't have the rest of that. So okay, we have all this natural log 1 over T. Okay, no, that right. Then we have this here. So this is yeah, what this is really, this is log base E 1 plus R equals this. Okay, which is, and we sort of left that out here. I don't know why, but we left that out. But we'll insert that step next. Yeah. This is base E. Yeah. And then then we go here. Right. Yeah. That's why it said log there. Log base E. Log base E is just ln. So 1 plus R E to the 1 over T natural log future divided by present, subtract 1 from both sides, and you're left with this formula R equals this. So yeah. So, and again, I realize, no, I would never ask you to compute that, but for the 401 and the 410 section, this is the fundamental formula that you need in that section would be this. So that's how you get the rate. So what we're going to do is, and we'll just do it here. We'll say equals -1 plus exponent parenthesis, so 1 divided by whatever it is, 58 years times the log parenthesis 43,001 divided by 1. Yeah, like that. Yeah, I know it was like 20% a year, something like that. So anyway, so we annualize the number. That's about 20. You're making 20% every year for 60 or whatever it is, 58 years or 60 years or something like that. Right. So I knew it was that. I knew it was 20%. I knew it because I'd read Warren Buffett's life story. Like I said, don't worry if this seems too much. Okay, don't worry about that because it just shows you what this looks like, but that's the Warren Buffett. But again, Warren Buffett would say, "Hey, learn operating income statements, things of that nature." So okay, so I think in class we looked at the 2022 numbers. So what you have to do for something like this, you have to go to the Tesla website, and we're going to do that next. We're going to say Tesla annual reports and spell it right. And see where it says investor relations, you can go right to SEC filings. Securities and Exchange Commission is a repository of the annual reports of all the publicly traded companies on the stock exchanges. And what you want to do is you could just say 2023, even though we want to find other ones, and then you want to click on annual report and click on 2023 and then apply the filters. And what it gives you, it just gives you the annual or quarterly reports that you asked for. Now, here's the PDF. I'll click on the PDF. And in class, for some reason, I can't, maybe it doesn't have the license or whatever it is. I can't get this to download like this in class. And I'm frustrated by that. But, you know, what are you going to do? So that's kind of what happened here. Yeah, there we go. So, okay, so Tesla's is about 251 pages. And you can see it has the name of the company, the address, pursuant to the federal law, Securities and Exchange Act of 34. That's why this exists, and how many shares are out there, and what the share prices are. So I think it's 3 billion. Yeah, he's got 3 billion shares out there, and I think they even put a valuation now, or a stock price or something like that. Yeah, the company's valued at almost about $500 billion. Okay, $500 billion. The aggregate market value of the vote. So that's the equity, not the debt. Okay, the debt is another computation. All right, that's just simply the equity. That's, you got to keep that in mind. Okay, this is not the company value. This is the equity value. The debt value is another number. Then you subtract out the cash, and you basically get the enterprise value. Okay, that's a quick valuation sort of trick. And as you look through this, what the business is, here, I promised myself that we're going to do this. Yet those links don't seem to work or whatever, which is fine. There, it says Tesla designs, develops, manufactures, sells, leases high-performance, fully electric vehicles, energy generation and storage systems, and offers service related to our products. We generally sell the products directly to customers and continue to grow the customer-facing infrastructure through a global network of vehicle service centers, mobile service, body shops, supercharger stations, destination chargers to accelerate the widespread adoption of our products. We emphasize the performance, attractive styling, and safety of the users and workforce in the design manufacture of our products, and are continuing to develop full driving technology for improved safety. We also strive to lower the cost of ownership for our customers through continuous efforts to reduce manufacturing costs and offering financial and other services tailored to our products. And the goal of Tesla is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. We believe the mission, along with our engineering expertise, vertically integrated business model, focus on user experience, differentiates us from other companies. So they gave you a little bit of a competitive advantage. They give you a little bit of a description of the business, what their goals are. Competitive advantage means we differentiate ourselves because we sell you the car, we make the car, we service the car. All right, they do all those different things with the vehicle, the automobile. Okay, so you want to read through what the company does, who runs it, and somebody was saying something about the label of the Elon Musk or whatever. You know, he might have called himself something on some interview, but as far as the Securities and Exchange Commission is concerned, he's a CEO. Okay, that's what he cares about that. Okay, that's what he is. But he may have called these inventive guys, you know, Bill Gates and whatever, Tim Cook at Apple, and so on and so forth. They get very, IBM was very buttoned down, but the other ones, Apple and Microsoft and all those West Coast companies, that they march their own drummer pretty much. Anyway, so you have a bunch of sources of revenue, you have a bunch of costs that correspond to those revenues. So generally it's around page 80 or so. Yeah, you want to find. And there's something else we're going to look up here as we're looking through all of this. There's a letter from the accountant in here and all these other kinds of things. Some of the signatories are here. We want to find the financial statements. It's not there, so. Comprehensive. Here it is. Okay. So yeah, these, and again, you know, why we do what we do here. Again, you can study the macroeconomy, and you can, and you should, and you should study balance sheets and income statements. So I'm telling you the stuff that you need to succeed is what I'm telling you. So the cash position, how much debt there is, there's about 36 billion in debt. And again, this is in millions, means 6 more zeros. So this is not 40,000. This is 40 billion, right? Because 3 more zeros is 40 million, and 6 more zeros would be 40 billion. So you got to be able to deal with you have to be able to deal with the units. And again, if people want to look at a European company that's in euros, all of my projects are in euros. None of them are in dollars, or we convert to dollars. But here's the thing, though, and somebody was asking me about exchange rates. The dollar to the euro and the Saudi Arabian money and the Chinese currency. If these currencies were volatile and fluctuated a lot, that would be bad. Okay, so in other words, we're not doing any deals based on exchange rates. We're not. Now, also about the internet, there was the question in the international finance class that I want to maybe just take a second or two here to answer is someone said to me, what's the difference between doing business in Switzerland and doing business in America? Well, there's the tax regime, there's the accounting. The accounting rules are what's different. Economics is a scientific description and a pursuit of person's behavior in terms of buying and selling and using resources and living and working and things of that nature. That's economics. Okay. The accounting rules and the tax rules are what's different between Switzerland and Malta and us and other places, Seychelles, Belize, Panama, right? The Central American spots. Okay. So it's the accounting rules. So I'm trying to answer that question as we're going along here. Now, we're not going to spend any time on balance sheet, but we do want to spend a little time on this is the income statement of operations. Okay. We do want to spend some time on that. In class, I don't know if I have the feature that I'm going to show you guys right now, but I have this feature, and I probably do. I just don't know how to use it. See this? So I put the PDF, and here, we don't need this. We don't need that. So I put the PDF. Now, actually, if you look back at the folder here, now the Tesla, this is for 2021, for fiscal 2021, right? It's here. It came out in whatever, in 23 or something. No, for fiscal 22. This came out in January, whatever it is. It says 1/2/31. But this should be for fiscal 22. And actually here, year ending December. Yeah, year ending December. So this is on page 49. And this came out. What's the date that this thing came out? This thing came out 22 January 25th, 2023. Yeah, January 25th. That's the latest data here, right? How many shares there were. And in terms of the valuation, it was June 30th, 2022. Okay, so that's a little staler version of that. But yeah, so again, so this is free. You have to buy this, and this is a number of and you need a good legal sort of education to read this stuff too. Okay, just to keep that in mind, because it's written by lawyers, okay, with accountants, but really written by lawyers. So now, and what you have here, you have 2020, 2021, 2022. You have a couple years of results, and if you go back to further annual reports, you'll get 2020, you'll get 2019, 2018. You'll get and we'll do that over the semester. We're just going to keep going back to this, so because that's how important this is. Okay, this is very important, and across all my classes, everybody should be learning this stuff. Okay, so so the sales, 67,210,000. And actually, what we also could do, and this thing we have to do it ourselves. Maybe what might be better is to do it like that, and this thing is like this. That might be better. Yeah. So we could just look a little bit there. So we have these, so we can see what we're doing here. It's not cutting things off. So what you want to do is you want to come to this, to your spreadsheet, 267,210,000,000, type it in. And you want to get rid of the fill. So this is blue font. This is formatted as accounting, $, centered. The font is blue because it's an input. Now, the other piece of this, here it says regulatory credits and then leasing. What you can do, unfortunately, you could maybe hit an equal sign and combine those, because we don't have them broken up into pieces, unfortunately, because maybe maybe Tesla wasn't getting credits when they first started. I made this model from the older income statement, so maybe it didn't have that entry. I probably should go back and sort of fix it. Now, again, you do this all the time, you have a sense of your numbers. This, in sort of the rules of Wall Street Excel modeling, this should be a black font, but look at the difference. This is just a number 67210 just typed in. This number has an equal, that cell has an equal sign 1776 plus 2476. So you're doing your arithmetic in the cell and you're adding two revenue numbers and getting 71,462,000,000, which is that number right there. You see how you have that number? And then you have two more pieces to for revenue. Okay. Oh, also, this is the summation, right? See, so it's equal sum. H9 is column H. Rows are 9 and 10. Rows are 9 and 10, which are here. You're summing that array. You have the data, and so again, it's very computer sciencey. Okay, this is very computer. Now, again, this formula was there because I typed it in previously, and also just to tell you guys, this spreadsheet that I have here, this looked like this. This was blank. Okay, I filled in all the titles. What I did was I copy and pasted from here. I came like this. I highlighted, copied it, dropped it into Excel here, and then got rid of the numbers. So you have to have a little bit of dexterity in doing this. You got to have some dexterity. Like that. And then I copy and pasted this stuff, copied it, and came into Excel and dropped it off and worked with it. Indented it, bolded it. Okay. You got to learn how to do that. That's what we're teaching in these classes. Okay, that's what we're teaching. The slope of the line isn't helping you. I'm saying it's good to know that stuff, but that's not. This is what's going to help you get a job. Being able to do things like this. Energy generation and storage is next. Services, and they said body services, automotive services. We have a subtotal. Whoops, the subtotal is here. Whoops, like that. There you go. And there you have those pieces, right? The sales, leasing, energy generation, service. You added those four up, it gave you 81 billion. And actually, I got to open the master file for a second. Okay, no, we are okay with this. Okay, we're good. I may have fixed it already. Okay. Okay. And folks, let me tell you something. There's people, and I've met them at St. Peter's. Oh, I'm an economist, and I want to do scientifically, and what is all this accounting? Folks, if you're analyzing a transaction, you're analyzing an acquisition, you're analyzing a bank, you're analyzing some sort of venture, how do you think the numbers, their numbers are going to be presented like this? And this is the language. The economist or not an economist. Now, and no offense to the accountants, no offense to the economists, but accountants aren't economists. Economists can look at it quantitatively. Accountants can sort of follow the rules, generate the income statement, that sort of it. The analysis part are the scientists. So in other words, you need to learn the wording. You need to learn the legal language of accounting, the legal language of these legal documents to be able to make an analysis, and that will serve you, and you'll go very far with that. I'm proof of it myself. And now all revenues have costs. So using the matching principle, we're going to match to these four revenues. We're going to match the four costs: 49,599,000,000. Leasing, it costs 1.5 billion to operate the leasing business. We're clearing out the fill there. The services, this is running the repair shops and the body shops, right? 3 billion, 5 billion, 6 billion. So that's about 60 billion, 609 million. Okay. So now how you going to look at this? So if what came in the door was 81 billion, what got used up was 60 billion, and what's left? Well, the gross profit. Now, and I did this very uniquely here. I summed the four revenues and summed the four costs and subtracted them. 20,853,000,000. Okay. Research and development, and again, there trying to figure out the latest version of cars or whatever it might be. He did about $3 billion on that. About $4 billion on selling general administration, folks. And I'll tell you these, and then 176 on sort of just restructuring lawyers and accountants and things of that nature. It seems very innocent, these lines. As I'm doing more managerial accounting, there's a lot of work that goes into developing these numbers, and just keep that in mind. So the total operating expenses are there. There's gross profit, and then the profit from operations. I just did a big swath of added revenues, subtracted cost of revenue, subtracted cost of revenue, and subtracted operating expenses, and it gave me 13 billion was left of that 60, or that 81, pardon me, the 81 that came in the door, right? There's 20 billion left of the 60 of the 81 that came in the door. You could do a quick ratio of that, right? There's your gross profit margin. All right, that's about 25. That's 25%. All right. The other one here, this one would be equals this divided by the 81. That's about 16% from operations. Okay. We have much higher, our healthcare deal has much higher operating profits than that by a lot, almost double. Anyhow, and then earnings before interest and taxes, this is built up from the bottom, and we'll get to, but actually for this particular company, you get jammed up on this when there's incomes and expenses from non-operating sources. Okay, and that's important, especially in acquisitions where it's a little more of a complicated income statement. When it's a greenfield company, it's a new company, you're not going to have all that. All right, let's get down to net income. So now we have some non-operating expenses here. Interest income, 297 million. Expenses for interest, 191. Negative in front of that. The net of other expenses, 43 million net. So the income before taxes, or profits or loss before income taxes, 13 billion. So now it's down a bit from 13.9 down to 13.7. What you're paying in taxes, at $1 billion he pays in taxes. Now you have to be careful with this. This is, oops, the tax number doesn't have the negative in front of it. You should be consistent with that. So if it's a negative number, put a negative like I did up here, but whatever. Yeah, we didn't do it. We lost a little, but don't worry about that. Just know what you're doing. Know it's plus or minus. Know what you're adding and subtracting. So your net income's at 12 billion, 12.5 billion. But there's a little more to this. There's this other stuff here, and we'll talk about. We're not going to talk about it today, but in another lecture, we'll talk about what non-controlling interest means. You can't vote, and you're just sort of a quiet, passive shareholder. But that's usually a small number. Okay, so what's happened here is there's about 31 million of that. Okay, and that's subtracted out from, because all you're looking for here, the main people reading this are the common stockholders. The debt holders read it too, but the common stockholders. So you want net profit. You're speaking to that audience. You want net profits for the common stockholders, which is 12.5 billion. And then the share. And also, as we look through this, there's splits and different things going on, and more equity was raised and what have you. So we just, these are just entered, okay? And yes, there was a 3-for-1 split, a 5-for-1 split in the form of a dividend, and there's some other things, and we're not necessarily going to talk about that today. See, there's a 3-for-1 stock split and a 5-for-1 stock split. So it's going to be the number of shares will be about 5 times what. As we go back, as we work on this throughout the semester, this is going to go up by about 5 times because this company raised capital through the issue of new shares. Okay, the depreciation number, that's from the cash flow statement. We'll zip to that. That's going to be 3,747 billion. Depreciation is you writing off capital expenses over time. It's like if you constructed a new building, it costs $20 billion. Instead of having a $20 billion hit one day, you break it up over 10 years and, whatever, $2 billion a year, something to that effect. Okay. Earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation. You add back depreciation because it's a non-cash expense back to EBIT. You add it back, and that's why you get the 17. Okay, because you made whatever payment was made for capital expenditures whenever it was made. This is non-cash. You're not necessarily paying this but you're recognizing it, but not necessarily paying it off. And also, there's a difference between the numbers reported for the SEC, the numbers reported for taxes, and then when you do your valuations, you're doing your valuations based on cash flow, not based on the income statement. Okay, so there's a lot of here. This is just an add back here. I took the earnings before taxes, added back depreciation to that, and if we work up from the bottom here to get EBIT, which is here, this was profit added back, or added back interest expense, added back taxes, okay, is what we did there, and earnings before. And now with these interest numbers, I didn't look up the EBIT before interest expense is really where it's from. The interest income, that's just other income. So that's why we didn't net that out. And then other income expenses, we didn't net those out either. But you can see, though, you're starting to really split hairs, 13.6 versus 13.9. Maybe this one's a bit different. This is about $1 billion off, but these aren't going to be so different. Okay. So going bananas over those accounting rules as an economist, you're not, it may not be in your interest time-wise to worry about that so much. Now, look, I know we sort of ran through this, and you might be sitting there scratching your head. Oh, and also what happens is when you've got the weighted number of shares here, the 3 billion, 3.1, 3.4, you take the earnings and you divide per shareholder, so people can just do a quick reference without doing the math themselves. If I've got 100 shares, I made $4 a share and $3.61 a share. With diluted shares means by compensating your employees and they've exercised some stock options, and now there's more shares. Anytime there's more shares out there, it's diluting the earnings are what they are in terms of dollars. You start splitting up among more people, each person's going to get less. So diluted shares is trying to give you a bottom boundary for how low your earnings may be. That's really what that is. We're going to go over this a couple more times. Okay, we're going to do 2021, and that was my plan this semester, was to sort of work it like that, where we were going to give you guys, and I'm dealing with these issues right now. Okay, so it's like you're in the boardroom with me, and for better or worse, that's what I'm doing here. It works, or it's going to work, or it's not going to work. And I think after 3 decades of doing this, I think it works, and I think I have the wisdom to guide you as to what you should be learning. But it is what it is. So anyhow, but there you go. Okay. All right. So, and also with the Tesla thing, there's some if you look through the notes part of this stuff, wherever the notes were. Yeah, this other stuff, the other section here, administrative agents and waivers, this is a lot of the legal stuff. So their annual report really ends at about 100 pages, even though this is 250, but there's some other legal stuff there. And if this was paralegal school, we would worry about getting to it. Yeah, see, and again, someone asked me this question in the international finance course. So yeah, China, United States. It says the foreign table presents revenue by geographic areas. They're selling a lot to China. They're selling. United States is only half of this revenue. So 50% of the revenue from Tesla that we're talking about in class is international revenue. All right. So people were so concerned about international this, international that. Well, there it is. I mean, this is why we're talking about this company, is because they do sell across many places, and there's long-lived assets by geographic region. Again, mostly in the United States, but there's some manufacturing most likely in Germany, manufacturing most likely in China, and then some other places. So the long-lived or the long-term assets, their manufacturing facilities are mostly in America, but also are in other places. But when it's this low, when it's whatever this is, 15% of your long-term assets, I'm not saying you don't worry about it, but you know. But yeah, so they do have geographic sales. They do have geographic um, assets, and I'm trying to see if there's others here. Just going through the notes, variable interest, and this stuff gets the notes get very complicated. You worry, litigation, and if this is um, if this becomes anti-competitive and things of that nature. See operating lease in Shanghai, so it gets there's an operating lease in Buffalo, New York. Let's see what the Shanghai one says. It says we have an operating lease for an initial term of 50 years with local government in Shanghai for land rights used where we have been constructing the gigafactory in Shanghai. Under the terms of the arrangement, we're required to spend 14 billion Chinese dollars, which divide that by 5 or 6 is maybe $3 US, right? In capital expenditures by 2023 to generate some tax revenue, for that country. Okay, again, the Chinese divide that by 5, it's $400 million. If we are unwilling or unable to meet such a target or obtain periodic project approvals in accordance with the Chinese government standards terms for such arrangements, we would be required to revert the site to the local government and receive compensation for the remaining value of the land, lease, buildings, and fixtures. We expect to meet the capital expenditures and tax revenue. Yeah, so again, there's some international flavor to this, and again, we want to satisfy what people care about, okay, and respond to that. Okay, we certainly want to be able to do that. All right, folks, thank you. And we always like to say goodbye, face to face here. Thank you very much for spending some time with this. The NJCU audience and the St. Peter's audience, and spend some time, learn a lot of this material that I'm explaining to you, and it's going to help you dramatically. It's helped me. So, thank you, folks.